Have you ever wondered about what makes a bondwoman a strong woman? Well, I made a video for another channel, and that channel's kind of dead now, and I wanted to go keep it in the ASMR family. So I'm taking a look at what makes a strong bondwoman a redo, and I'm going to be voicing over rather than, but I do have a type over here, just asking, why did all the bondwomen from the past, why were they so strong and yet seem to fail so badly in No Time to Die and in some of the recent movies? So we have Honey Rider. She was a very strong woman. She wasn't intimidated by Bond all that much. She, as it says here, she believed in her own strength. She had enough strength of her own to make Bond leery of approaching, realizing, hey, this is somebody that I don't want to pin into a corner here because she's a fighter. So she had those qualities of being a very strong woman, and Bond recognized that. He could tell. I mean, here she was out here on the island all by herself. And in fact, he realizes, hey, this could be somebody I should team up with because she's going to be a good asset for the mission. She could possibly even help me make a success of this mission. So, her strength was evident. So Tatiana, she was not a strong person to begin with. She was just very infatuated with Bond. But here, at the very end of From Russia with Love, she realizes that she has an inner strength. Now, and this was an inner strength that Bond had reinforced because he had been treating her as someone valuable and had been building up her confidence. And you see that look. He looked to her like, is this you? Did you do this to me? And she's like, no, I didn't. And he realizes that he let his guard down. He's the one that fell short on this. So she's going to be looking for, or Bond, he's going to be looking for some help here. And at this moment, he is completely reliant on her help. And he's hoping for it, and then it comes. In fact, she becomes the hero here in the end because she saves Bond. Now, we have Pussy Galore. And she entered in kind of having a charisma and some strength and some authority of her own without even really being introduced. Bond wakes up and there she is. And she speaks with authority. She moves with authority. And she can even turn her back on Bond. He's not a threat to her right now. And she can sense that because she has this inner strength to herself. So the interactions between her and Bond were very good because she had no issues speaking to him as an equal. And Bond respected that. Of course, they have their banter back and forth. There's the attraction and that. But she carried her own. And I'll give you a little clue. She had it on her own. They didn't write it in and make it a fake strength. So that's going to be a little bit of a clue as we get along further. Now, Domino. She knows she's in this bad relationship. And she knows that she usually picks wrong men. She's attracted to the wrong guy. And she knows Bond is one of those guys. That's probably not the best for her. But when she realizes that her brother was killed, she wants justice. And she sees Bond as a tool to bring her that justice, and she's on board. It takes her a while. She's thinking about it, and yet she realizes that if she teams up with Bond, she can help get her revenge. Bond knows that now that she's reached that point, she's got this strength and inner strength. She's been pushed to a point now where she can help on the mission. So, yeah, you could see in her eyes, she gets that look in her eyes. She's going to get her revenge, and now she even sets up Largo because that this is just step one in her getting justice for her brother. And she's not even phased here. She's on a mission now, and she's internalized and found that strength, and that power within her grew probably beyond more than she even knew. And at this point, this was just step one. She's saying, hey, just promise me one thing. You're going to kill him. Okay, Fiona. Powerful threat to Bond. Powerful threat to men. She, out of most of the Bond women, had this inner strength where she could use a man the same that Bond could use a woman. And to the point where, yeah, you can see he's impressed, even a little worried, because he realizes that, wow, this is a really strong woman, and she got the upper hand on me. And she's controlling the room here. And it's not written in. It's not written in like, a fake power that was given to her. She has it. She just exudes it. And even though Bond is voicing, he's trying to put up a good front here, and he's got his own confidence, but he knows that this could be really hard right here, because she's a very strong adversary. She is not easily swayed. She can hold her own, even against him. So she's not taking... Oh, and that's another thing, yes, as I'm looking at here. She doesn't take power from Bond. She brings her own. That will come into play as well. So have you noticed that trend? Have you noticed this trend? Why these Bond women so far? Why they've been strong female characters? It's because they have their own power. They're coming to the table with their own power. Like Aki. There, she brings her own power to the table. Sure, these characters are written, these characters are created, but they're not created with a fake power. And they're not given Bond's power. They carry their own power. They don't need to steal it from anywhere. Helga Brandt. Now, she also has her own power that she brings to the table. She had her own power in here. She didn't steal Bond's power. And that's what we're seeing in most of these scenes. We are seeing two powerful, two strong people, a female and a male, that can occupy the same space. In fact, we have an example of a female character, a woman so strong of character that Bond falls head over heels in love with her, and he's going to marry her. And we see that with Tracy. And they get married. One of the strongest people that Bond had come across, and yet tender enough to let him in her circle, and he let her within his. So now then we look here. Most of the strong women that we have run across so far, they don't need Bond. Now they see at times where they can use him, and he's going to further them along. But most of the time, they bring their own backstory. Like, they've been doing this for a long time already. When we've met most of them, they've been living a tough, hard life already. They have a confidence. They're self-reliant, like Tiffany Case here. And they were doing this before they met Bond. So it's really a difference between what we find later in history with the Bond women. Now some are like Solitaire here. Again, they're in a bad situation, and they're kind of hanging on and seeing how it plays out. And yet Bond helps them find an inner strength that maybe they didn't know was there, and he helps them use it. And so that was like Solitaire, but some are like his equal, doing the exact same job, like Anya here, Agent Triple X. She was doing the exact same job. She was literally his equal. And Bond, he's even glad that she's on his side, for sure. And I think it was the superiors even said, what a great team they made. They were unstoppable when they were working together. So, and Bond could even realize that. And yet you realize too, they had the same job. They didn't have to steal James' job, his power, and that they had their own. They were already doing it. In fact, when we look through a lot of our history of the other agents or other Bond women, if they were already other agents, they were usually the best partners that would come along and worked with them. In fact, they were probably the strongest women in the Bond movies if they were a fellow agent. Or, as we saw with Domino, and then here as well, for Your Eyes Only, where the women, like Melina, they're getting revenge. And there's this strength within them that is just a driving force. They are going to get revenge for the wrongs in their life. And it's driving them. And James Bond, he sees that strength in them. And he's like, hey, I can use that. They're an asset to me. I help them get their revenge. They help me complete my mission. The perfect pairing. And they share that strength together. Now, here in Octopussy, this was very interesting. She's a little too close to Bond's character. The exact same, kind of that same level. She's got a lot of power behind her. And in fact, could push the line, could push the limits, even more than Bond was willing to or allowed to, because they were willing to break laws, do things that Bond, he was like, no. But he definitely loved strong women. The attraction to strong women was there. The weaker ones, oftentimes the weaker ones, you'll notice he doesn't just like woo them and go after them as much. It's the ones with some strength. Now, Stacy Sutton here in A View to a Kill, she was strong on her own because she was standing up to a bully that was trying to buy her off and take the last little bit that she had left in her family. And she was willing to stand up against that. Now, of course, yes, she was yelling for James all the time. She was over her head, and she didn't realize what she was standing up against, but she was standing up against it nevertheless. So, Bond, yeah, he became her muscle. And yet, she was very knowledgeable in the mission. So while Bond was able to, help her with a lot of the brute strength and that needed, she had a lot of the answers. She had a lot of the missing pieces to the puzzle of this one. Why was Zorin doing what he was doing? If it wasn't for her knowledge of what was going on, Bond wouldn't have known what was happening. Now, Mayday, physically strong. I mean, she was like physically really strong. And even though she was against Bond for most of the movie, when she realized she had been double-crossed, she decided she would work with him. And in fact, getting revenge and stopping Zorin, stopping his plan, was even more important to her than living. She literally gave her life and yells off, "Get Zorin for me," as she saves the day. She saved all those people's lives without having that bomb go off and start a huge chain reaction of earthquake and flooding and that. So, but you'll realize too, none of this was at the cost of Bond's strength. They were working with him. They became a working team. Okay, now Kara. Kara, again, was not known as being strong, but boy, was she loyal. She was so loyal and very optimistic. And when she was loyal until she realized that she had been wronged. I mean, she even stayed loyal to Yogi, who had backstabbed her, but her loyalty was there. Well, Bond helps her find her confidence as well. And he saw the talent and the confidence that she had. He helped her be able to play at Carnegie Hall. And it was just, this part here was very touching and true, because he wasn't going to miss her big day. She needed to be rewarded for her loyalty and the strength that she showed. And what a treat it was for us all to see her get rewarded for how much she helped on the mission. And then in License to Kill, now we go back to seeing our CIA partners, our fellow agents. And this was a strong Bond woman. She had been going on missions, dealing with tough situations, knew how to be prepared, made the best partners, as always. They could use each other as backup, and one wasn't completely reliant on the other, but they could go back and forth. Now, even when at times when Bond would think that his female partners had messed up, they would prove him wrong. Like here, in this instance, she, because of her strength that she had, she already was prepared for this. And that was experience. That was strength. That was experience. She'd been doing this long before she ever met Bond. And, yeah. And even here, he's frazzled. He's like, I thought you were dead. But nope, I'm fine. Keep driving. Lupe, she went through some really bad stuff. She was in an abusive relationship. And probably not the first. But she was a fighter. And now she saw in Bond, she saw an opportunity as well. She's like, I'm going to see this bad situation through, because I think this guy may get me out of here. May get me out of this situation. So she kind of falls into that revenge category, because she needs revenge for the wrongs that were done to her. But she's also a survivor, because even when he says, well, I can get you back home, she's like, I don't want to go back home. I worked super hard to get out of there. So, given that right opportunity, she wants to thrive. She wants to keep climbing. So for her, Bond is that opportunity. He could make that opportunity happen. Now, as we see here in GoldenEye, on the top, some of the strongest female villains have the same vices as Bond. You see, she's a gambler. She's a smoker. I know in a lot of the Bond movies you don't see Bond smoking that often, but in the books, as most of the Bond fans know, he was a smoker. And yet, she sees a challenge in Bond. She's not out to shame him. She's not out to steal his power. She's there to challenge it. Because, they can make that same, as we see here, they can make that same eye contact. They can sit at the same table. They can be the same threat to each other. Here she even has a bit of a temper as she loses. And she is a sore loser, not a good loser. And she's not going to let it go. Okay. Now, sometimes, as we see here, some of our strongest female characters, they will tell Bond what he does not want to hear. You have this flaw. This is something that is missing within you. Now, they don't like him less because of it, but they're strong enough to point it out. And they're not completely impressed by him all the time. They see him. She sees him as a flawed man, like that, and a cold, and that. But we also realize that no emotions for Bond. What does that do? Well, we'll see. The many strong women, the female characters in the Bond movies, they're willing to take just as many risks as Bond too. Just like, well, would they? Are they willing to? Well, yes. Here, looking here, this whole scene, they had to work together as a team. And this is the ultimate example of having to work together as a team, because there was no getting out of this situation unless they worked perfectly in sync together and were willing to take the same risks. Now, we saw here one of the strongest female villains. She used Bond, and she used Bond big time. He did not faze her. She had a sole purpose, and there was no sentimentality, not really. And she had him beaten. She actually won. At this point, she had come out on top. Bond could have died right here. So many times, of course, Bond could have just been shot and killed. But they exploited, many times they exploited him and his flaws, his soft side, for women. They exploited it, used it, and they weren't ashamed to do it. Or they would, some of the strong Bond women, they could give a good double cross. And he would never even see it coming. Again, he was exploited for a weakness that he had. And she has the strength here that she brings to it. She has a power play, and she used it. Okay, so in Casino Royale, of course, Vesper. This is probably one of the most amazing exchanges between Bond and a strong female character and a strong Bond woman. Bond, he's given his turn to show off, and he does. He's just like, oh, you know what? Well, I can do this, I can do that, and let me prove it to you. I'm gonna give you some readings about yourself, and he does so very accurately. He does it with some tact, with a little bit of sting in there. He's still pushing some buttons. He's trying to get a reaction. She doesn't really give it to him because she's holding her own. She's strong. She's not. It takes a lot to push her button. She's been through a lot, and she can withstand it. And so then she's like, okay, you had your shot, and now it's my turn. And she's gonna fire back another shot across the bow. And Bond settles in. He's enjoying it. He's like, oh, someone didn't cave. Someone didn't back off. And she's right. She's hitting it. She's tactful. A little bit of sting. She's pushing some of those buttons back, but she's not being cruel. Neither of them were cruel. Just a little pushing the buttons. Boy, what a strong interchange between these two characters. You could just feel the chemistry there at the table and a mutual respect that was building of the talents that the other had, the strength that the other had. So it was really something to watch. This is probably one of my favorite interactions between Bond and a Bond woman. And it ended with some humor. You know, they were saying, yeah, scared. Yeah, and he just, he felt, he was just, he really wasn't hurt that bad. No hard feelings at all. They occupied that same space at the table. Okay, now Camille. She was working through her own issues. This is a strange interaction. This was a strange relationship. There were kind of two broken people at this point. Very lost. And Bond, he's working through his issues. She's working through her issues. And they kind of helped each other through them. And it was interesting. I should have shown the other interaction where he was saying, hey, if you haven't killed somebody, you're going to feel it. And that, so, you know, but they came together. They helped push each other through the issues. And, yeah, that was about it right there. It was, okay, here's a little kiss goodbye, and you take care. I gotta finish what I started, and I gotta leave. And so he leaves more focused. She walks away, again, more focused herself. Okay, we have our strong mother figure with M. She, of course, was taking care of Bond as in another aspect, in another way. So, she really did a nice job of taking care of him, knowing his weaknesses and strengths. And then, of course, Madeline had this inner strength that she hid. She came across as timid. She came across as scared. Now, she probably was, with her background, the things she went through as a child, the things she went through with her father, of course, Mr. White. But we kind of see Bond tries to take control, and Madeline is shaken, but then she tries to take some control back, and not give in completely and show him that he did rattle her, but she's very strong inside. And we see it here because, yeah, she has this familiarity with the subject of death. She can be very frank about it. To her, it's not a scary subject. It's a matter of fact. So all of a sudden, she faces him, and there's these two strong characters. They're sharing the same space. And then things change in No Time to Die, because she still seems to be carrying some of that inner strength from the past. And in fact, she's feeling a little bit more bitter and hurt because of what Bond did to her. Now, remember when Bond said that being cold without emotion, that's what kept him alive? So if he started to become emotional and not keep distance? Did that mean that he would no longer stay alive? Seems to make sense. And we never see Bond ever have opened up and been so vulnerable as this. Not even with Tracy. Then right now, he is utterly powerless. He's literally saying, I have no power whatsoever. You've taken everything from me. And it was sad. Okay. Actually, now, he's never been so vulnerable. Now, yeah, that look says it all. Yeah, I literally have no power left in me. And then Nomi, she literally steals Bond's power. Literally steals the power out of his vehicle. This is foreshadowing of everything, all the power that she's stealing from him. And, okay, foreshadowing here. Hey, need a lift? Need me to save you? Sure, okay. Okay, get on the back. So, yeah, this was done on purpose. Lack of power to Bond, given to Nomi. Now, he still knows he has an inner strength. He still knows that what he's accomplished and that. But now all Nomi does is just steal Bond's strength. She really doesn't have anything of her own to offer. She just comes in, sits down, and just starts insulting him. And to Bond, he's just like, well, you're still kind of a nobody. Like, who are you? Literally, who do you think you are? You give me no vibes of power whatsoever. Well, all she does is just put him down. Tries just to make him feel worthless and old and used up. So this is how she's trying to get her strength, by stealing Bond's. Don't allow him any strength, but rather become a bully. So we're not seeing equal power here facing each other. We're seeing a bully trying to push Bond around. And then she's like, oh yeah, guess what? I even stole your number. You don't even have that. I stole it. And she's proud of it. So again, she doesn't have her own strength. She's just a bully. And trying to steal what Bond had. And then the way he acts was like, oh, you can have it. And that. But then, as any bully does, when they get confronted, they get nervous. They get nervous. Oh, I'm having something taken away from me? Well, what did I do wrong? So Bond gets a little bit of his power back, and now she starts looking all weak. She's just trying to stay significant somehow, and it's not working. She's a weak character ultimately. And if all the other movies and the female characters did not prove it, then this does. This does right here. Paloma. She is not stealing from Bond's power. In fact, she comes in, she's kind of like nervous. She comes in like, oh, maybe I'm a weaker individual. But she doesn't do anything to steal from Bond. She recognizes the power he has, and she gives it to him. She grants it to him that it's there. She doesn't steal his. But she comes in with her own background, and again, remember, the best partners are other agents. So CIA comes in again. And what happens when Bond teams up with other partners? They become a complement of each other. So again, Bond here, he has a partner. She's not taking what is his. She's complementing him. She's his partner. They're working together. They're two strong characters. They're in that same space, working together and dignifying the other one. In fact, Bond is very impressed with her. He's like, what? I can't believe you've only trained that long. So that is what makes a strong Bond woman. The sharing, the working together. They're a partner with Bond. And they can be equals together. So I hope you enjoyed this. And we'll see you in the next video. And I know there may be some that disagree with me on this. This is just kind of how I felt about the Bond women all through history and how it seemed to change in No Time to Die. In Die Another Day, I kind of felt that, Halle Berry's character, Jinx, again with her, some say, well, she's a strong character, but I didn't really see it as strong. It seemed fake strong. It was a fake strong. It was written in, and it just came across as fake. So that's kind of how I saw that. But anyway, I don't mean to offend. This is not pointing at women so much as the Bond women characters and how they were written, how they were portrayed. So this is just how I felt about the characters themselves. So anyway, I appreciate your time, and we will see you in the next video, everybody. Thanks. Bye.